Well, hello and welcome to the Wednesday Word. This is the Desert Spring Church podcast coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. My name is Julie Hart. I am the Director of Connectional Ministries here at Desert Spring, and I will be serving as the host of the podcast. Today, I have two very eager first-time podcast guests with us, and I'm excited to be able to hear more about their story. We are it's February, it's the month of love, of course, and so we have been doing a series on couples that have been married a really long time. So I really got to know this couple. I think really the first I got to know them was actually many years ago in the marriage class that Pastor David did. At the time, I was newly married, and my then husband and I were a part of this group, and so we got to know a little bit about your story then. So, but that's been a few years, so you'll probably have to refresh me on a few things. But anyway, that was a long introduction. I'll let y'all introduce yourselves, but we have Paul and Cindy Kimmel here today. So, Cindy, let's start with if you could just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how long you've been here at Desert Spring and some of your involvement here, just to lay the groundwork.
We've been at Desert Spring since about 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, we've both been very active. The most memorable thing is that I was in the trustees, and I got from being a member to being the chairman. And it was during the time that we were in the process of building, which was crazy because the whole economy was down.
Yeah.
And so, but somehow we managed to pull it all off, and it was great. It was a very exciting time.
Yeah. That was an exciting time. This predates me, but of course I've heard about it, and it's really hard to think that during the downturn is a time that our sanctuary was, they raised the money to be able to do that here, and it's a remarkable story. So, thank you for serving on trustees. Like that's.
It was interesting. If the alarm went off, they would call me in the middle of the night, and I'd have to come down. I don't know what I was supposed to do if anything happened, but there I was.
Okay, well, now I'm that girl. So, yeah, you want to get on that list again?
No. It was crazy. The wind would do things.
Yeah, and the balloons too.
Yes, lots of balloons.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And I think I started coming in 2009. So you both were here a little bit before I got here. So, all right. So, Paul, what about you?
Well, we've been together in the church for that length of time. Was during the previous pastor, Tom Maddock. I joined the finance committee and became finance chair. And that was probably around the same time that Cynthia was trustees chair. So we overlapped in that. I brought in new software for the church for membership and finance. Obviously, we cared about the cost of the building and worked through with that. And I stayed on the finance committee after that. I was probably chair for 4 or 5 years, and then a little bit longer. Dave said I had to cycle out because we were already beyond the limits that the Methodist Church would allow.
Right, we have limits, right. That's
so
true.
I stay on church council as endowments chair, which doesn't have a lot of activity because we focus on raising money for our general missions opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I've also been in the choir, but things got a bit busy, so I haven't been in the choir for a while.
Okay. Well, you both have been in service and given, and so yeah, you got long-term. Well, you were here before I got here, so long-time members, right? So I mentioned that we met in the marriage class, and this series is about people who've been married a pretty long time. So you have a big anniversary coming up, so we're not going to quite make it at the time this airs, but y'all have been married 39 years.
39 and a half, yes.
39 and a half. That counts. That counts. That's wonderful. So I want to start with, first of all, how did you meet?
I will comment after he.
This sounds good.
I was living in suburban New York City, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I was a part of one of the 2 or 3 major voice ensembles in New York doing the big works. And we were approached by this impresario who was trying to make his name for himself, who was in Southwest Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
He came a bit too late to get the entire group to go, which was what he wanted. So we said those members interested could go, and he went off and got some other people, the Opera Company of Connecticut, I forget what group from Wisconsin, and some people that were around him in Louisiana, which included Cynthia.
Ah, okay.
So the goal was to have, it was partially sponsored by the Greek government, and we were touring, singing in Greek theaters, opera hits, and they loved that, of course. Opera is still very popular in Europe.
Yeah.
We met early on in a hotel lobby, and she can go on from there.
At that time, they had a travel booth, and so I was looking at the brochures, and they were mostly German, and it was a very popular place for Germans to go, was to Greece. So I used my very best German and asked him, did he speak German? And he had no idea what I was saying.
After I cringed at what she pronounced, we talked.
And that's how it began.
And actually, this was in Crete, the island of Crete, in the town of Chania.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is spelled 17 different ways. Chania.
Oh, yeah. Right. Spell one.
Chaina.
Okay.
N-I-A. And I spell it the other way, X-A-N-I-A.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I knew there was an X. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you meet in the lobby and you throw down your best German and
Anyway. But I was traveling with a bunch of people from Louisiana.
Okay.
And this was supposed to be a vacation for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were there to pass a good time, yeah. And so I think he was rather intrigued with our craziness. And so he started joining us at the table and stuff. Mm-hmm. And we had one lady that was a grandmother. We had one lady that had her two daughters with her, and myself and my best friend. And so we were there, and we just, there was a boy there too, a young boy. Anyway, so we had the whole gambit. Well, one day we all went to a museum, and they put a sticker on us, and it had a blue sticker with a black slash. And so we decided that would be our family crest. And so we became the Slash family because we had all these
awesome. Yeah.
generations. But I love to tell everybody that Paul's first wife was a chorus girl. And of course, I am the first wife, but I wasn't in a dancing chorus. I was in a singing chorus.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. So how old are you both at this time?
35.
No, really? Oh, gosh. Okay.
Right.
No, you weren't 35?
Plus.
At the time?
Oh, at the time.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're in the Slash group and you're hanging out. Okay.
And their group wasn't particularly serious about singing. These people were just, he filled in the group with the people from Louisiana. Our group spent weeks during the summer going over the music. We were, like I say, one of the major groups in New York. So we took it all very seriously, and they didn't.
So how did that work together?
Well, we had to pay our own way, so we didn't owe them anything.
She's got a really good point there.
And we had the tapes. He sent us tapes. So we sang it just like he wanted it because of the tapes. They had to relearn everything because he wanted to direct it his way.
Differently.
Well,
it paid off.
It wasn't a total relearn, and we really knew the music and could properly express it.
Not necessarily the way the director wanted, but anyway, it all worked out.
Okay, so you're singing every night. How often are you singing?
About every day.
About every day.
Mostly in Greek theaters.
Okay, and
outside.
then
real Greek theaters.
Yeah, the real Greek theaters. Yeah. Okay, and how long is this tour that you're doing?
It's about 14 days.
14 days. Okay, so this is not a whole lot of time, 14 days.
No, but we had a little bit of time after the end of the tour because when we were to fly back, they said that the airplane wasn't fit to fly. They were having an engine trouble.
Wasn't fit to fly. Words we love to hear. Okay.
So we were at the airport in Athens, and they had to send to England for another engine. So we were in the airport, sleeping, talking, whatever, for, I don't know, 36 hours?
Okay.
24 plus.
After 14 days.
Yeah.
Now.
So we had more time together.
Okay.
And then when we got back to the U.S., obviously the original flights that people had scheduled were not around.
Oh, messed up. Okay.
So I had the group to my house in New Jersey, and we had a little bit more time.
You really get to know people when you get to an airport and you're locked in, and they say it'll be 24 hours and you cannot leave the building.
Yeah,
And,
I'm thinking,
all those congenial people suddenly begin doing the ugly American thing of, you can't hold me here, I'm an American.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing that.
A few of them.
Were they?
Group, yeah.
Okay.
So he was, for a change, he was real calm.
He was being calm and well, because he had maybe, now at this point, I just want to know, at this point, are you like, I kind of like this girl?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you picking up on that vibe?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were liking him back, but had you guys really talked about it yet? Or are you just being cool at this point? We're just playing it cool right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And besides, you're there as a professional. So, right.
Right.
But
On vacation.
But,
Cindy's there for a good time and you're like on the clock. So.
But we were on my screened back porch overlooking the woods beyond, and I did express how much I had found I cared about our relationship. And so before she flitted off back to Louisiana,
she flitted.
for a long-term relationship, we were going to continue.
Okay, so you knew then that you wanted to keep in communication.
Very much so.
Okay, and how many miles did you have between y'all?
1,500 miles?
Yeah, about 1,500.
Okay, all right. And so, what did that long distance relationship look like?
Well, phone calls. She came up with her mother, right?
Oh, that's serious.
You came up with your mother once, and then I flew down to her
Father's birthday.
Her father's birthday in
serious.
Texas, where she grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked her father if it would be okay if I proposed to his daughter.
Okay, hold on. This feels like this happened real quick, so I feel like
It is happening real quick.
How much time has
Now, remember, this is July. We had this tour,
the tour? Mm-hmm.
and we got married in late November.
You did not. Wow. So tour in July, get back in August.
Well, got back
Yeah,
probably in
very first.
July.
First part of August, and November you're married.
Right.
Wow.
It's Fisher cut bait for long distance relations.
And this is the first marriage for you.
Yes,
Only
it is.
marriage for you. Okay. All right. But for Cindy, you said second, right?
Right. And when I got back from the trip, my ex-mother-in-law was supposed to pick me up at the airport and with my two kids. And when I finally got there, she said, you can't see the kids. And I said, what? And so what had happened was that while I was away on this vacation that everybody in the universe knew I was doing, he had re-enrolled the kids in another school, and he had taken full custody. Well, in Louisiana in August, the courts close for the whole month, and I could not do one thing. And my parents were on vacation.
Wow.
My lawyer was out of town, and Paul happened to call right away, and he couldn't believe that the whole world had just collapsed.
And her husband was a lawyer, and knew the judges and so forth. So there was
he timed
a lot.
it just right. You
There
understand?
and there was a lot of small town. We're going to make this happen for this lawyer.
And how old were your children?
They were 7 and 10.
Ugh,
So it was.
that's unattractive.
It-
Yeah.
I called the Civil Liberties in New Orleans, and they said, we can't help you. And I thought, there's nobody. And I did a lot, say heavy praying. But Paul was, instead of going, oh, defeat, this is so sad, he would go, so what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And he was so strong. And I knew that God had put him in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when I was weak, he was strong. And when he gets weak, I get strong.
And that's a real early on in a relationship kind of big problem.
A lot was going on.
I mean, that's pretty quick. So you're just barely getting to know each other, and suddenly this is a big ticket item that you're going through together. So how did that work out?
We got married. No, he met my parents, and I met his parents over Labor Day, and then by then he had proposed and everything, and so my mother and I went back to New Jersey so that we could pick out rings and stuff. So it was all very wonderful.
And what did your kids think?
Well, they weren't living with me.
They were out of the
And
picture.
so they were out of this time. Yeah, and they did meet him when he came for my father's birthday, and they were kind of shell-shocked about everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
So-
thinking about my kids were 5 and 9 when I got divorced from their dad, and it's startling for kids for their moms for some reason to date or get married is seems to be a little bit
Yeah.
harder for kids to accept.
Well, their father had gotten married 3 years earlier.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah,
you know,
dads can do
dads
that.
can do
Moms
anything they
can't
want.
do that. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
All right.
so I spent most of September in court trying to get everything settled and stuff. And he made this wonderful bargain that they would call me once a week and that they would have holidays with us. And so at Christmas, they came. I had to fly from New Jersey to Louisiana and then fly them back. And we went first to see his parents. And his parents were so wonderful with the kids. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 days later, we went to New Jersey. And their father called it, and he would keep them on the line for about 45 minutes. And they got very belligerent. And finally, my son said, I'm leaving. He's 10. And we said, what? And he said, Daddy said he'd pick me up at the airport. And so our time was cut short.
This was a time when he was doing big time pollution of their minds, swaying
I'm
them
familiar with that play.
away from her
Yep.
with probably lies.
Yeah. That's
Anyway,
rough.
So, poof, they were gone again. And
Wow.
that was hard.
Well, it's just interesting because it's like this new relationship, new excitement thing happening at the same time that just such
Yeah.
a giant crushing. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, it got worse. The phone calls became shorter and shorter. Like instead of 20 minutes, they were like 5 minutes and
From
stuff.
the kids.
And
Yeah.
you could tell that he was standing right beside him and stuff. So anyway, it was a difficult situation, and it came to a climax when in March my mother and father came to visit us, and it was her birthday, and so I said, "Oh, we'll talk to the kids." And my son and daughter refused to talk to either one of my parents, and they told Paul, because they didn't want to talk to me, that they didn't want to talk to us anymore, ever.
Wow.
And you could tell that they were being coached, and so that was the end of that. So it's a very long time before we saw him again. Like 22 years.
That will be a part of the story to come. If you're going down the timeline, there's a gap now.
Wow. 22 years is a very long time.
The
Wow.
really the only positive of that is the two of us were together as a couple and got to know each other personally.
Yeah.
That way,
Yeah.
one-on-one.
Yeah. Wow. Just to think about a new relationship and just carrying that grief in it with you and to how you were able to be there for her. That's
And
big.
it haunted her continuously.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure it did.
One of them had a birthday in February, and the other one had birthday in April. So from end of January to the 1st of May, I was like,
You're just a mess.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing about children is they do grow up and then they have adult brains, so they can process their childhood through adult brains. And
Right.
So that, that's,
Yes.
that's the good news. Okay. So we skipped some parts about how did you propose, Paul?
Just verbally, just
Phone.
because we set the stage before she left after the tour, and we talked on the phone, and I made it clear that I wanted us to be together, and so we went into we meet each other's parents and all that.
Just knowing that this is where your head. So there wasn't some big moment. It was just a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, yes, this is right. We know this is right.
And it's funny because I had dated a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and actually I had been engaged at one point, and just
Mhm.
wasn't the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, the right person came into my life.
And you knew immediately. Seems like you knew really early on.
Yes.
Okay. So my question about the early years, that kind of answers it. The early years were kind of bittersweet. You had this time together, just the two of you, like newlyweds, but also, this sadness, this burden that you're carrying. So, yeah.
And he was working in long hours too, so that was kind of hard too.
And so we haven't talked about what y'all did, like occupation wise.
Well, I was an MBA graduate from Harvard, and I had gone with Arthur Andersen, became a CPA, and I moved to the corporate world first as a financial analyst, and then moved up and eventually ended up as CFO for 3 or 4 companies.
Mm-hmm.
But the hours are long as a as a finance guy in a company.
Yeah.
Also, the typical tenure of a CFO in a company is 5 to 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
5 years, I think it is. We managed 6. Things would happen. The company would go into a downturn, or the company was acquired, or this or that.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved about every 6 years.
Yeah. Okay. So where'd y'all live?
Well, we started in North New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked in New Jersey and also in the city. That is New York to those people that don't call it the city.
I understand.
We moved from there to San Antonio. Her sister had had seen an ad for a CFO and thought I might be interested, and it proved good because my company was starting a downturn and a
Mhm.
consolidation. So we were in San Antonio for 6 years, and then that company eventually failed. And I worked for a bit at New Braunfels, a water park manufacturing company,
Okay.
and moved. That was kind of more of a consulting role, really, than really being a CFO. But a contact back in New Jersey, who had been my boss at one of my companies in New Jersey, we'd been in touch a number of times, and he introduced a situation for me in Santa Barbara, California, that sounded really interesting, and we moved there.
Wow.
So we were in Santa Barbara 6 years.
Okay.
That company was acquired. And the founder of that company was doing some European roll-ups of medical device companies he was based in Las Vegas. So
Okay.
he and I connected. I came to Las Vegas, worked for him. The FDA had a major slowdown on approvals, and the company ran out of cash. So that ended that one, but I became CFO of another company making electronic table games.
Okay.
And then after that one, I was the head of finance for a nutraceutical company in Henderson.
Okay.
And then actually that one was after I'd retired from the previous company, and I got called. We were on vacation in Canada, in British Columbia, and I got a call from a recruiter in Michigan asking me about this opportunity he had in Henderson, Nevada. So that worked out.
Okay. That's pretty handy. Yeah.
Then I retired again.
Again, yeah. No one ever retires once, I'm learning. Yeah. Okay. And so you just every time packed up and moved and just went on to a new adventure?
Yeah. We moved 3 different states.
Okay.
So it was when I moved to New Jersey, I knew Paul. That's all,
Right.
And when we moved to San Antonio, it was nice because my sister wasn't too far away.
Yeah.
And during that time, my mother got really ill, and I was able to stay with my father while she was in the hospital and all that. And then when we moved to Santa Barbara.
Well, before that, your father, after your mother passed, your father was with us for a bit.
Yeah, that was fun. And then showing how God was always taking care of us,
Yeah.
Getting
He could
us in
have put
the
us
right
somewhere
place.
else, but he put us right where I needed to be in Texas.
That time.
See?
At that time.
And then we went to Santa Barbara, and I talked to my father one day, and he was going to have a procedure the next day. And we chatted, and we had a good time. And the very next day, during the procedure, he died. And I was so thankful that I had been able to talk with him the day before. And it just, God keeps always taking care of us.
And one of my questions for you is, how you have been able to keep God at the center of your marriage, and it's, I think the biggest thing is you recognize when God is present in that, and it hasn't always been easy. So how have you both been able to identify, like, this is a God thing that's happening here, or this is God's timing, or God will get us through? It's like, how has that worked in your marriage?
For me, the most obvious times came when one company's position was going away, and we were stressed. And out of the blue, from an unusual direction would come a situation that would work out. After a lot of prayer, it was after the first company in San Antonio really kind of went down. I didn't have anything right then, and through a website connection in New York City, this company in New Braunfels, which is just north of San Antonio, contacted me for this situation that I helped them out with for a year. And at that point, again, this ex-boss from New Jersey got me to go to Santa Barbara. And of course, the big God thing was getting us together in Crete.
Yeah. Yeah. See, you're the first couple so far that didn't meet in college. So I'm going to tell people, like, either go to college or leave the country is some good advice. So, Cindy, I know you've talked about these God moments, and you have some of these that you took some time knowing that you were going to do this interview to kind of think through your marriage together, your time together, and those God moments. What are some of the biggest ones that for you?
Well, first of all, I hate journaling. I hate having to write down these things. But I thought you wanted that, so here goes. When my ex-husband divorced me, I was left with these two kids, and he left town. And I had a teaching certificate, but I hadn't taught in a few years, and so it was kind of in limbo. One day, I was looking at the paper, and there was an ad in the paper for a store. And I said, what? And it says, store area representative. And it was for McDonald's. And they said, we need someone that works with community groups, youth groups, stuff like that. Well, that's all I had done my married life was, go out there and be part of the community, because at that time lawyers couldn't advertise. So the only way you could get your name out there was have your name in the paper saying, oh, she helped with the parade, the Christmas parade. Well, I went to the interview, and the guy said, list your activities. And I put down the DAR. And he said, what's that? I said, this is Daughters of the American Revolution. And his eyebrows went up. And I said, no, it's a historical kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, right.
Just, thinking I was the weatherman or something.
Right.
Or she's not that old.
Anyway, I got the job. And it wasn't because my father was president of the university from the town that I lived in. And it wasn't because my father-in-law had the biggest rice mill in America. It was because me.
You. Yeah.
And it was an eye-opening experience for me. And I think that God did that. God said, look at this paper today. Go down here and, put your little foot in front of the other and do it.
Yeah, and that you could recognize that what you did, a lot of times, we don't recognize if it's not like an official job, like our experience and how that counts. I tell kids all the time in youth group and all that, you write these things down, these things that you're doing, they do count. And so that you were able to think about that and recognize. And so, maybe your husband used you to, promote his business, but also that the experience was a gift for you. Yeah.
It worked. And it turned out to be a great thing. I did television once a week. I did the Player of the Week in Lafayette, Louisiana, Football Player of the Week. And I did a radio program every week about local events going on at our store. I did bounce back coupons. That was fun. You come to my store and I'll give you free French fries. You go to Walmart and you get a little on the back of your sales slip. It says free French fries at McDonald's, and you go to McDonald's and they say 5% off on peanut butter. Or something.
Yeah, back and forth. Okay, gotcha.
And so those are the bounce back things. That was fun, and I had all kinds of contests that I had to make up. And I had a kite flying contest and all kinds.
That's great.
But one of them was a Valentine thing, and I had elementary students from all the different schools draw up Valentines. Okay, so that was that. Then I had the high school students judge them. Then I had the junior high students take them to the nursing homes.
Oh, I love this so much, all of that.
And so I covered the whole gambit, It was really neat. And I got to give away watches and all this kind of stuff.
That's great.
Anyway, so it was a fun thing. But there was a lot of pressure. I had 5 stores, and 2 of them were in Lafayette. One was in New Iberia. One was in Opelousas. One was in the other town. And so it got to be a lot. And I had these 2 little kids at home. Mm-hmm. So then St. Michael's Catholic School called me and asked me if I would be interested in teaching.
Nice.
Now, if that ain't God, I don't know what is.
Nice.
Nice. And
especially since she wasn't Catholic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went and I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, my credentials are kind of weak. She said, "No, you can just take these extension courses." So I went to school and taught school. And,
wow.
And again, it was God. I'd had my pinnacle at McDonald's. I'd gotten my confidence back.
Yes, yeah.
And all that. One thing that happened, I went to a convention in New Orleans for McDonald's people. And there was a man there that was selling uniforms. And so we were talking, and he could tell that obviously I hadn't been away from home because that was the first time I'd ever been in a hotel by myself.
Wow.
Yeah. And here I was 30-something years old.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so we were talking, and he started telling me about himself and that as a child, he was a Holocaust survivor.
Wow.
And that he had managed to escape and gone back to the United States. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "Why won't you listen to me? I didn't go back for my family." And he said, "You are living for your family now." He says, "But it wouldn't have done any good for me to go back. I too would have been killed." And it really hit me that, oh, okay, just giving your all doesn't really accomplish that much. Mm-hmm. So that was a little seed that was planted in my mind.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, the concept is move on and don't stress about what you can't change.
Yeah. You have to, exactly. Yeah.
And
it's a
really
stoic way, right?
Eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
So
little messengers along the way, right? Little messengers along the way.
All the time they'd be giving me things, yeah. So it was great. But our time together wasn't all that easy either. We had 3 miscarriages. And the first one, well, Elliot came easily, okay? But then the second child was miscarried. And it was devastating to both of us. But again, we decided we'd have a service. And so we had a very private service at the church, and we had our immediate friends come, and we read scriptures, and Paul sang a song. And it was a nice way to have closure. And
The congregation was very supportive.
in the and I don't know, it's I always thought that child's the luckiest one of all because he could go straight to heaven.
Yeah, still, that's a heartbreaking thing to go through.
But we'd been at that church for a while, I guess. It was probably after I helped out with the services because we had about a year gap between ministers. So we would have visiting ministers, and I would basically run the rest of the service. I would do all the liturgy
Worship
and so
leader,
forth.
yeah. Where were you on Sunday, Paul? Yeah.
But again, God was there, and God gave me that thought that your child is with me now. you know?
And that's because you've obviously had a lot of hardship and grief, and as people do. And this is the first time you're talking about your church family. So to back up a little bit, were y'all both raised in the church?
Very much so.
You were both raised, so what denomination were you raised in, Paul?
Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod.
Lutheran, okay. And for you,
I was
Cindy?
MYF president.
Of course you were.
I went to the National Convocation
I
of
love
Youth.
when people say NYF because kids now do not know what that means. But yes.
Well, in the Lutheran Church we had Walther League,
okay.
which was a really good thing.
Okay, so you both grew up in the church, so there's no question that church was going to be a part of your life, and everywhere you went, you found a church to belong to. Okay, so how did you get him to our side?
We had been with Lutheran churches, actually for a while with the ELCA as well.
Mm-hmm.
But when we came to Las Vegas, everything was a little too contemporary and not friendly enough.
Yeah.
So
our dogs got lost.
Your
so
what
she's
got
segueing into how we found Desert Spring.
your dogs. You did say your dogs got lost.
What?
Okay, I thought I heard you wrong.
One dog.
No, Bradley was with him.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so we had these two little dogs that loved to explore, and they got out one day, and they got lost. And we looked all through the neighborhood and couldn't find them. So we went down to the guardhouse, and they said, "Oh, yeah, Miss Brandy has them." She called. And so
I know where this is going.
And so the kids and I went up to Brandy's house, and her kids were out in the yard playing with the dogs. The dogs didn't want to come home, of course, because everybody loves Brandy. And we thanked her profusely, and we took the dogs home. And the next Sunday, we were church shopping, and we came to Desert Spring, and there was Miss Brandy. And I took it as
You're
a
like,
sign.
we're home.
I took it as a sign. Again,
That's so good. That's God.
It was a friendly congregation.
Yes.
And I enjoyed the sermons. It wasn't as structured as I prefer, but and the theology is a little different. But I've enjoyed both theologies.
Yeah, and that's okay. You can take even if you're in the same. A Methodist church is not. I mean, every church you go to is going to be a little bit different, right?
And from surveys of people that go to churches, most people at most churches, their theologies are all across the board anyway.
Yes, that's very true. That's actually when I was looking for a church to be married in, Lutheran was the first place I started looking because of my experience with just the people that I'd known. So yeah, that's nice. Okay, so church is always a part of your life. You've always got this family to fall back in. Whichever town you go to, you go and find a church and you get involved. And I'm assuming you were pretty involved in all of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's wonderful. Were you married in the church?
I was a good Methodist girl. I married him in the Lutheran church in Huntsville, Texas.
Very good. Okay.
Because I figured Methodist adopt anything.
That's right. We're
We're
open.
strong. We're going out inside.
Exactly. All are welcome.
Yes,
Grace. Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so continue on with the kids. You talked about you had your first easily, and then you had a few miscarriages.
Right. And then we started moving all the time. And when we lived in Texas,
Well, before you in New Jersey, Charlotte was born as well.
yes,
You took a lot of bed rest because she was an at-risk baby, considering the age of the mother.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
They call it geriatric. I know, right?
Yeah.
It's rude.
I hope they don't use that,
They do.
They
That
do?
is the actual term. Yeah.
even though you're still in your 30s.
Yes, it's called geriatric.
I wasn't in my 30s.
When you're
so-
like 35, you become a geriatric pregnancy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
So you were on bed rest.
Yeah, and that was hard. It was
And-
like 3 months. And they were so mean. They'd say, "Oh, in 2 weeks. We'll see you in 2 weeks." And then they say, "Well, another 2 weeks."
Mm-hmm. They just drag you out that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
saying, "This is it, girl. You're here for months." So it was long, but my son and I got real close.
Mhm. And they're how many years apart then?
Just 3,
4 and a
So-
half. 4.5.
4.5. I think.
So you had 2 children together. You had your 2 children from a first marriage, and then these 2 together. Okay.
Maybe we should segue into how they re-entered your life.
So
Yeah.
this is
Our life.
exactly where I
So-
wanted to go.
So when we were in San Antonio, remember my other family was in Louisiana, and the daughter was going to graduate from high school.
Your daughter.
Yes. I had never told the other 2 about their step siblings.
This is before Facebook and social media and all this stuff. Okay, because otherwise they would have known. Okay.
And it was scary to me because they were the same age as when we got married. And the first 2 had rejected me after this, "Oh, how could you do these things?" And so it took
Wow.
everything I had to talk to him about this. But Elliot was so sweet. He said, "I can't believe he did that to you and left you. Oh, that's terrible." I said, "Well, if he hadn't, you wouldn't be here."
Yeah. That's yeah.
But instead of, "Well, what did you do?" and all
Uh-huh,
this. So anyway, we decided we'd go to the graduation because it's a public affair. And I just wanted to see her. I didn't want to talk to her. I didn't want any drama and all this stuff. And my friend said, "You got to pray about this, and you have to find a scripture and hold on to that." And so anyway, she said, "Pray about every detail. Where you're going to park, what you're going to wear, where you're going to sit in the church," because it was the Catholic church, and all this stuff. Everything came to pass. Just
Exactly as you.
Yes. There was no parking places, and then suddenly there was a place to park. And, graduation in a small town is a big deal. We walked in. We sat at the very back, and a few minutes later, my ex-neighbors came and sat right in front of me. And they were welcoming. "Oh, we're so glad to see you." Or instead of, "What are you doing here?"
Yes.
And I said, "Well, I just want to see my daughter, and I don't want to talk to her. I don't want any drama. This is her big day. I don't want." They said, "No, you got to say hello to her." I said, "Oh, I couldn't possibly." So after the ceremony,
Wow.
they made me march up there. That was God. So I
Took a
got
lot
to
of courage. Yeah.
got to talk to her for a few minutes, got to see my son for a few minutes. And then we went up to my ex-husband and said, "Congratulations on all the awards your daughter got." And he said, "Well, thank you very much." And he's looking over the crowd. He never recognized us. So it was great. No drama.
I can't. Wow.
But if we hadn't been in San Antonio, I would have never gone to Louisiana to the thing. So it's just stuff like that. So I thought maybe
Well,
you...
talk about your when Lisa found out about you and what was changing in your ex-husband's life.
Oh, okay. So the ex-husband's wife died, and a couple of months later, Lisa called me, and that's the daughter. Okay. But she first of all, her mother-in-law had helped somebody find their birth mother. And she told Lisa, you need to do this because, like I said, I'd only seen her once. Okay. So she knew that we had a son whose name was Elliot, because that's my father's name. And she knew our last name, but she wasn't really sure where we were living and stuff. So by then we had Facebook and stuff.
Oh, see? I knew that was going to get in here somehow. Yeah.
So she managed to find that Elliot was living in California, and she called him.
See? I'm telling you.
And she said, and he was real nice to her, which I was very thankful for. And she said, do you think it would be all right if I called her? And he said, oh, yes, I think she'd like that. And she said, would you give me her number? And he said, yes.
And Elliot's how old at this time?
He's in his 20s.
Low 20s.
Okay. That's still a kid.
Yeah. He wasn't married or anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So he calls us to tell us, watch out, Lisa's going to call. Well, we were eating dinner, so we ignored the phone call. So we'll call him back later. So the next call was Lisa. Paul answered the phone and he says, it's Lisa. I went, oh. And I picked up the phone and sat on the stairs and talked to her. There was no drama. All these shows on TV, they all come in weeping and hugging and carrying on. It was, hey, how are you? I'm fine. I just have some questions.
And she's how old now?
She's married.
I mean, at this time that she's calling you,
Yeah,
how old
she's
was
married,
she?
and she's has a child.
Yeah.
But they'd also started to learn some things about their father. See, the father had been running around with another woman who had a Pentecostal church, and I guess he wanted to run that Pentecostal church. He took up with her for probably 3 years before the
Actual divorce.
The quasi-divorce. It was a Haitian divorce. And then he took up with another woman later.
While he was married to her.
So the kids were finally seeing the nature of the father.
So anyway, when she
and that maybe some of these stories they heard were not true.
Yep.
So anyway, so she gets in touch with me and we have this great conversation. And she said, can I talk to you again? I said, oh, anytime. You let me know, And she said, I think my brother would like to talk to you. He's coming to Las Vegas for a convention. And I said, oh, that'd be great. I'd love to see him. So, ta-da. After all this trauma and heartbreak for something like 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just crazy. It all came back and we had our hallmark moment.
And we have become very close with all of them. We spend every Christmas with
the eldest.
JJ, the son.
That's beautiful.
And JJ presided over Elliot's wedding.
Wow.
Because he's a minister.
Yeah, I picked up on that. Okay.
He's a minister and a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
both sides of the coin.
There you go. I just, what I think is fascinating to hear you tell this is I hear you, it's a joyful thing. And I don't hear, it would be very easy to be bitter about all the years that you lost, right? It would be very easy to hold that, resentment. And I'm sure there's definitely hurt. And I there's parts of your stories I can understand, and it's a sad thing when parents go through divorce and they have to do that to their children.
Yeah, be at odds with each other,
Yeah, and that's a sad thing. But I hear just the celebration in, having them in your life again.
And it like I say, it's a happily ever after kind of ending. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's really remarkable.
And JJ has 4 kids, and Lisa has 2, and so we see a lot of kids when we visit.
That's
so
great.
We have 8 grandchildren.
That was my next question. Now you got to have some grandkids right now. So you have 8 grandchildren.
Because Elliot has 1 and Charlotte has 1.
Okay.
And then the rest.
Of course, they're young. We're about next month. We'll go to Charlotte's son's 2nd birthday.
Wow.
And what's nice is they're in driving distance. Charlotte's just north of San Diego, and Elliot's just west of L.A. When I say west, don't think the ocean. The coast does curve.
They live in a boat. Okay. My heart is still hurting a little thinking about, as a mother, telling your children, you know what, there's these other children before, and just that
You're
fear that you
scared.
would have, the fear of that rejection and abandonment, which is kind of flipped because it's more, usually it's kids that fear like being, rejected by their parents, by not, and so to have that kind of fear and to be able to have been met with the grace by children, right, by such grace, is just really beautiful, and it's a testament to the people that you raised them to be, right? That they could respond in grace with that, and it's exciting that they have both sides, they got extra siblings, which
Yeah, Elliot is particularly fond of his stepbrother JJ.
Yeah.
They talk. They even look alike.
isn't that funny?
They
Oh,
do.
that's cool.
And Lisa looks just like I do. You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And Charlotte loves her big brother. That he make a point of flying into San Diego to see her and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's great. It really is. And they're supportive of each other. And Lisa is real good about coming to see me every Mother's Day.
That's so great.
So it's like you say, it's like that Hallmark movie channel. Everything ends up.
Yeah, and that really gives you hope. And so the two of you being married and going through ups and downs, and the downs came, even before you were married, right? You're dealing with that like right away. What valuable lesson do you think that you learned that you couldn't have learned without each other in your lives?
One thing is we grew together.
Yeah.
Along with the things that we liked about each other initially, as we got to know each other more and more, we found a lot of commonalities of things that we enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I think is important for others to find in a spouse is commonality of interests. Not 100%, but having things that you can share and grow on.
Mm-hmm.
And prayer is another one to
Mm-hmm.
make sure people recognize the importance of prayer and praying together.
Mm-hmm.
Real prayers, gut prayers.
Yeah.
And communication. That's always an issue, usually an issue between couples.
Yeah.
Couples, one spouse will assume the other one should know something.
Mm-hmm.
That's never true.
Mm-hmm. One spouse could assume the other one hears something
As-
too.
a-
Yeah. Yeah.
One has to really vocalize calmly if
Yeah.
there's an issue,
Yeah.
so you can talk about it.
Yeah.
And of course, if there's an argument, it's good to back away for a bit and then talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I think you have some other God moments that you jotted down there. Cindy, are there any
Well, just
standouts for you?
That one of the things that we've learned is that God works out every detail.
Yep.
And, let go, let God kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You need to remember that. And it's done in His time. Like with Charlotte, it was hard to have her. And we did the shots and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then stopped, said, well, we're never going to have it. And then we did because it was in God's time. God said, okay, now you realize I'm the one in control.
Yeah.
And you go,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
You think, how stupid can you be
Yeah.
to not realize these things?
Yeah.
But everything will happen in God's time.
Mm-hmm.
And I like after it'd been 20 years since I'd seen these other children, I figured, well, I guess we're never going to see them.
You pretty much had resigned yourself to
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. And I told Pastor Dave one time, I said, hope is cruel.
Oh. Oh.
And he said, well, I said, no. If they had just said, that's it, move on, it would have been a lot easier.
Gosh. That hits me too. Yeah.
And I don't think God works out every detail. He works out things for you for the best of you.
Yeah.
But He created this world with free will. As a
Yep.
result, there are randomness in this world. It has
Yes.
to be with free will.
Yeah.
So, not every little detail is planned by God because He lets things happen.
Well,
but important things He usually comes through.
other people's free will I try to explain this to people. everyone, God gave us free will, and sometimes other people's free will splashes into our lives, right? It's like, okay, so Cindy's handed me the Bible here, her Bible. I love this big print. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Circled arrows, underlined words in Cindy's Bible. I love that. Yeah, that's
my scripture to hang on to.
And it's important to be in church together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's important to be in church for the community of others.
Yes, it is. And so in a moment, I'm going to ask you, I've got two more questions for you. And one of them is about advice that you give younger couples. And I know we went to the marriage class. Obviously, you took better notes than I did. I don't know. We laugh because, as you all know, that I was a newlywed married at the time. We divorced at the end of 2016. And of course, now we're dating. So, I mean, you never know. But
in God's time.
In God's time. But before I ask that question, I want to know, Cindy, what's something about Paul that maybe would surprise the rest of us to know? In verse 5, so I'm asking you too, Paul, about Cindy. Like, what's something you think that might surprise people that, a lot of us have known you for many, many years, but what might be surprising?
I'm sure that some people know she
moves furniture.
She's very organized, but maybe a lot of people who don't know her from trustees don't realize that. She loves hospitality. Mm-hmm. People that haven't been over may not realize that.
I've never been invited over, not for nothing.
We are a little slacking on that whole area. We already have vowed to increase our circle of having people over.
That's nice.
We just started. It's important to do that, and we really haven't done that for quite a while.
Actually, I might have to take that back. You might have had an Emmaus meeting many, many years ago when I first came here at your house.
I know we had a Bible study at our house.
Several
of
those.
Small group, a couple of times.
I can see you being the hospitable. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so advice for younger couples. First of all, for those that are,
she loves to move furniture around. You never know where something is going to be.
Cool. So take your flashlight when you get up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, you can't depend on the space being open.
So you like to change it up?
Yes.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm doing that right now. Not because I want to, but I have to. Okay. All right. So advice for younger couples.
Communicate and celebrate. We celebrate the day we met, July 19th. Every year we celebrate that.
That's so cute. That's so cute. Communicate and celebrate.
And, I made comments about communication before, so those fit into this now. But also, and this is what we're trying to get back to, is cultivate friends with similar interests and beliefs.
Yeah.
It's a reinforcement thing.
Yeah, it's really true. And I think it's important. I value very much in the church. I have really been blessed to know people of all generations. So me being 55, I'm like the monkey in the middle, right, of the road here. And I learned so much from those that are much younger, and I get to learn from older. And so I do think that I love to see more of time spent together across generations and learning from each other and understanding, because it's very different. I tell moms now with young kids, I'm like, whew, I got out of this just in time. Y'all, like, this looks hard what you're doing, because being a parent is not the same today as it was, when we raised our children.
And it always seems like the older people always say, gee, the world isn't as good as it used to be. And I really don't like this or that or the other. Yeah. I think God gives us a certain lifespan so we don't have to keep dealing with that.
That's very true. That's very true. That's really true. So yeah, I think that's really good advice. I think COVID, people kind of went in and forgot how to go out and be amongst each other and spend time together. And, I think people are still struggling to get back to gathering and spending time together
Right.
in that face-to-face kind of way. So I think it's important, if you've got a great marriage and you guys know the secret sauce, then you need to share that with other people.
Well, we'll be doing that tonight with you at a small group.
Yes, you're coming to a
Yes, yes.
community group. Yeah, yeah. Well, before we close, are there any last things you think that maybe we didn't cover? We're winding down the month. Actually, following you next week will be Pastor David and Jerry. So, do you have any questions you think I should ask them?
Was it cold in the teepee?
Okay, I'm gonna ask that question. Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful story, and I did learn some new things, and
We haven't shared this with many people.
No.
And that was the thing. When we first got married, I never discussed that I'd had children, with anybody. And so the first 10 years, it was always like people would say, "Oh, do you have kids?" And you go, "Oh, just this one,"
Yeah.
It was like you had to hide it.
Yeah. And how, yes. And the pain that must have caused for all those years. There's a new book out I have to get. It's called Super Communicators or something like that. And one of the things they talked about is to really be a super communicator and have meaningful conversations and relationships, you have to be willing to be vulnerable.
Very vulnerable.
And so I really applaud you for being vulnerable here today, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that there are parts of your story that will help them, that are struggling in certain ways and carrying certain burdens that are hard to talk about. And I think it's good to talk about them. So
I truly believe that God put us together, because I was in Louisiana, he was in New Jersey, and God decided, let's put them in Greece. And
you
we'll
had
put
to
'em
leave
together.
the country to find it. I mean, you truly, that's, yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
bizarre
Yeah.
in so many ways, but it worked.
It's a God thing. It's beautiful. Well, I thank you both. You see, I told you, they're like, you may remember, like, we can't really talk that long. It's like, you'll be surprised when we get talking. There's a lot to share, and you have so much of a beautiful story. I know we probably just, it's the tip of the iceberg. I wish you could see, we're not a video. Otherwise we'd never have any guests. We're just audio, except for Cindy has brought her bouquet from your wedding. And that's very sweet. The pictures will be up with the podcast. So thank you so much. Before we close in prayer, just want to again say next week we'll finish this. If you're following along this series, we've got to get to know some couples in the church. I think we need to circle back and do this again, because it's been really fun getting to know couples. And Pastor David and Jerry, yes, if you get this message now, you can email me questions, right, that we think we should ask Pastor David and Jerry. But although we've had a lot of sermons, we've probably heard a lot of it. But anyway, gracious, loving God, we just give you thanks so much for the beautiful lives that Paul and Cindy have, and the many lives that they've touched. And I just give you thanks for their willingness to come and to share their story, knowing that parts of their story will touch listeners in ways that can be healing for them. We know that their ability to see you in not just the great things and the great times where everything is going well, but also in the struggles and the hardships they've gone through is a big part of the success for the marriage that they have. We just ask that you continue to bless their marriage. Coming up on 40 years, it's a lot of wonderful years together, and we just pray for many more blessings together. And we just thank you for their children and their grandchildren, and for the happy ending that we get to witness. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.